Hi, welcome to the Human Design channel inside of or the Human Design stream, I guess, inside of the Coherence Lab channel. I am Christine. I'm a 5/1 manifesting generator, and I am all about making human design practical. So, what I'm trying to do is just talk to people about their experience with human design. And today I have my friend Amy with me, who I will let her introduce herself, but I think I'm the one that introduced you to human design, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Yes, and so she's got her own little cool human design journey that I thought would be fun to share. So I'll turn it over to her to introduce herself.
Yeah, I'm Amy Pierce. I live in Massachusetts, and Christine introduced me to my own profile. I'm a 3/5 generator, and I was completely blown away with what she had to say because it was all so validating. And it sort of like helped me to understand not only what my job is as just a person going through this journey and in the world, but also how others perceive me. And that is the part that kind of had me step back and examine what it was that I was trying to do versus what I should be doing. And that like really, like especially with my own family and my own like my close friends, it really helped me to sort of stop fixing everything, let everybody kind of do their own thing and understand that everyone is on their own path and journey and everyone has a different profile type. Um, and then of course I started digging into all of my sisters and my parents and everybody around me, pulling up all of their charts, recognizing that all of us are so different and understanding like, oh, geez, that's why my sister makes those decisions and that's why she acts like that. And this is what my effect is on her. And so it just really sort of it helps me to kind of keep myself in check, but also helps me kind of sympathize with others or like understand that everybody has their own stuff and their path.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what human design is here to teach, right? Like, it's like, look, we have all kinds of judgment around all of this stuff, both about ourselves and about others. And all it does is lead to suffering, right? We are all actually designed to be completely unique and different. We are designed to think differently. We are designed to behave differently. And yet we have all this conditioning in the world, right, about trying to make us all alike. And in between those two things is where the suffering lives, right? And so I think it's really fascinating. I'm curious, like, was there a particular part of your design that, because you really did, like, you totally jumped in, you really dug in deep. I'm just wondering if there was something specific that came out in what we talked about that you were like, oh, wow.
Um, well, yes, it actually went back to my marriage back in like I've been divorced now for just about 13 years.
Mm,
Um, since that relationship, and it was only a 4.5 year relationship, I went through a lot with him with the conditioning and with the like a lot of doubt and just
mm,
everything that kind of when you were going through my chart with those open areas, it made sense to me, like why I was susceptible to that and why I felt the need to keep trying to make things better, um, even still after we were divorced. Like, we've got 2 kids together, we still have to deal with each other, and there have been a lot of conflicts over the years. Um, and I'm happy to say, between working with you and working with Christina White, with homeopathy, um, my perspective has shifted. I've sort of stopped letting that get to me. And so I'm sort of like seeing things differently and recognizing that his um, actions and his the way that he's talking to me is not mine, it's his. So like that for me was like the shift that I needed to kind of um, bring myself out of it. And I've been having much better communication with him. because I'm not as in depth with my explanations. I'm giving shorter responses. Like I'm doing less
Yeah.
all around.
Yeah.
So, and it's been helping, even with my kids, they're teenagers now, and even seeing them, like they feed off of my energy, and I've got the solar plexus defined, and I'm sending out all the emotions, and they're picking up on it. And so being able to keep myself in check in that area too has helped them feel a little bit better about their relationship with their father. And it's been building a little bit more confidence in them too. So
Nice, nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was like the real big one
Yeah,
for
wow,
me.
that's yeah, well, and I think that's so interesting too, because I think that's what human design does a lot for people is it you already knew this about yourself and your relationship in that space, right? You already knew all those things, but there's something about the seeing the map, seeing the body graph, and having somebody say, "Hey, this thing here may show up like this." For
Mhm.
you to confirm to yourself, like, "Oh, that's it," right? And then like I don't know, I cannot tell exactly what it is about I don't even know what the word is. It's more than just frequency, it's more than just mechanics, right? There's something there where we see this energetic signature of ourselves, we feel the confirmation in our
Mhm.
own body, and then it just serves over time as like a constant reminder, right? Like I can always go back to my body graph and be like, "Oh yeah, that's that thing that's open in me."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's
Have
actually
you
definitely helped too because I've got the open head and ajna, and so like I've always kind of felt like I'm like behind, like I'm not retaining as much, I'm not learning as much, and I'm like I feel like I'm supposed to be keeping everything in and like being able to recall everything, but then reading through my chart and having you explain it, it's like certain things go in, then they go out. And then like if it's not something I'm gravitating to or like grabbing on to, then it's gone. And
Yeah,
it's okay. And I
right.
don't have to like kill myself trying to like remember exactly what it was that I was supposed to remember. So like with human design, I'm trying to like get a lot of repetitive information so that I can retain it, but it's something that I want to learn and it's
Right.
exciting to me. So it's like it's staying in there.
Yeah.
So um,
Yeah, no, I love that. I have an open head in ajna too, and I think, again, that was another place when I've learned in my design, I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder I have such a hard time remembering things, right? Like I just do. Like it's just not a place. My brain is not a storage place in many ways. Like I have a lot, and you may have this experience too. I have a lot in there, but I don't feel like I have a lot in there until somebody asks me a question, and then I'm like, oh, well, I can tell you this and this and this and this,
exactly. And then it's like, oh, and then I interrupt like, oh, wait a minute, that's what it
right?
is. And it like
Right.
comes up, but it's like,
Exactly.
I know it's there somewhere,
Right,
but
but I need to ask, like we're both generator types, right? I need to be in response. But it's
Mhm.
given me a lot of peace, right? To recognize like, oh, this thing that I'm not sure I had a bunch of judgment around, but I just had some like frustration and some curiosity, and it's like, why can't I remember these? Why can't I know the things? Like my husband's got like a steel trap mind, right? He can read something once and he'll remember it for 20 years, right? And I'm just
Yep,
like, what's wrong with my
yep.
brain?
Mhm.
And then it was like,
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
there's nothing wrong with my brain. It just works differently.
Right. Yep.
So I
Yep.
love that. Um, have you used the human design that you've been learning? Have you been using it much with your kids? I feel like that's a place that's really helped me.
Yes, actually, my older daughter is she's a manifester.
Ooh,
And
okay.
she is very much like in her own space. She likes having her own space. And I've always been like, Rachel, come on, let's go do something. Let's go. Like, I'm trying to get her involved in more things. And she's just like, I don't want to. Like, and so for me as a parent, I'm like, I feel that pressure to like, okay, she can't just be in her room all the time. She's got a library of books she loves to read, but it's something that like, well, you should probably get outside and do like more activity. But she's just like, no, I don't want to. And I've kind of learned to give her that space. And so Now we have less resistance because I'm not like forcing her out the door where she's like, I really don't want to go.
Mhm.
Um, and letting her have that. And then now she comes out more often because she's kind of like, oh, I'm not being forced to do anything. I'm just
Right.
kind of here and we can let her be. So that's sort of that's been very helpful with her. Uh,
Hmm.
I've actually got three kids with all different types.
Oh, wow.
So my youngest is my manifesting generator, and she is so different than the other two because like the way that she like her outlook and her energy, and she's just so clever and like she didn't fare well in public school,
Mm.
and we recognized that a long time ago. We pulled her out in first grade, and then we went back to public school, and then this year is her fifth grade year, and we found this amazing school um, that helps her be her. And it she's just got such a bright mind, and like everything that she's learning like two things at once. Like she can
Like a true
keep up.
manifesting
Yeah,
generator.
she really, and it's so awesome to find that space for her
Yeah.
that works for her. And the other two did pretty well in public school. So it was like I knew that she was a little different and she was struggling so much in the public school. So
Yeah.
being able to give her that
Hmm.
was big. I mean, that's just huge anyway. But
Yeah.
and then my middle child, she's the generator, a peer generator, and we found her a high school that she's in an agricultural high school, and it's she
Oh,
loves horses, and so she loves to be involved with things and busy and active, and so she's very happy there. So
awesome.
I definitely think like all three of them are on such different paths, and yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it's been cool to see like
Yeah.
that's kind of the direction that they should be going in.
Yeah. Well, and also again, some confirmation, right? These things that you knew about each of them, you see it in their charts, right? And it helps you to have more information, when you're making decisions like schools, right? Like, is this school going to give my daughter, my busy, super bright, super curious, multi-passionate, non-linear manifesting generator daughter space to be non-linear, right?
Yeah.
And we know schools more than ever are more and more linear, right? They're more and more rigid. For kids like, manifesting generator types, that is not going to work, right?
Yeah.
Talk about boredom,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, just recognizing that. And again, like if it's too bad that the school systems don't have these tools because honestly, you wouldn't have school. You have so many generator types sitting all day long is horrible for them,
Yeah.
right? So
I know.
you would have to do school totally differently.
Right.
But, I guess we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so now you've actually gotten pretty deep in human design. You're actually doing some of your own training, and I'm just curious, like that's pretty fast. It's been like a few months, right?
Ben, I think I was introduced back in like September.
Yeah.
And I'm just kidding. I like I really so there was a lot of passion, and I am I mean I do work from home, so I'm able to kind of dive in with like here and there whenever I can. But I'm taking a course through Richard Beaumont, who you
Mm-hmm.
introduced me to. And I'm also, I put together a small workshop presentation to introduce to our clients over at Your Life and Land, the
Mm-hmm.
homeopathy, and using that in that space is going to be huge because I think, being able to see, because homeopathy works with profiles and the remedies and matching, and being able to see their human design blueprint also, and knowing which questions to ask is it's going to just help us even more. Because there are so many things that you don't even think to ask. And when you see an open area in somebody's chart and you say, oh, well, I've noticed that this is something that could potentially be a source of resistance for you? Can you talk a little bit more about that, or like ask a certain question about how they do certain things or feel certain ways? And it sort of gives us a better understanding of the unique individual, and then we can hopefully get the remedies that are correct for them to, work a little bit quicker.
Yeah,
Because, with homeopathy, it is a lot of, there's so many remedies out there.
sure.
And
Yeah.
finding somebody's constitutional remedy is super helpful and important. And
That's cool. So you guys have been playing around with that then in the practice already.
yeah, we've a couple of times, like we've got a couple of clients that are trial.
Game. Yeah.
So we've got
Yeah.
a few people that we've talked with, and we're experimenting with. So um, yeah, I can't wait to see where it
Yeah.
all leads to.
Well, and that's perfect. That's what we're trying to do here in the Coherence Lab too, right? We're trying to figure out what, not figure out, there's many ways to coherence, right? There's many paths, but we are convinced that many of these modalities have a lot of crossover, right? And so, Lauren is doing a lot of gemotherapy work, and she and I have talked about, is there a link between homeopathy, not, I'm sorry, between human design and gemotherapy?
Mhm.
For sure, I think that the homeopathy and the human design have a lot of, crossovers, and just, I think anybody actually looking to help somebody can gain a lot of insight from their human design chart, right? Like
Yes.
even
Yep.
without them having to know anything about their chart, right? You can just
Mhm.
say, again, like you said, an open center. I always think of the open heart, right? Like 70% of humans have an undefined heart center. And our heart center is the most heavily conditioned place in our body graph, right? So if you are dealing with a patient who is just not progressing for whatever reason, knowing that probably the real root cause of everything is they just don't feel very worthy in the world can be
Mhm.
really important.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what, symptom you've got, whether your skin is whatever, or,
Mhm.
whatever's going on for you, right? If you don't feel at the core of your being like you belong on the planet,
Mhm.
you know, that's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
low.
I
So,
know.
right? And so I just feel like you don't have to know a ton of human design to
Mhm.
actually be really, just have it be really useful for you,
Yeah.
you know?
It's definitely very helpful.
Yeah, I love that. Um, I'm just curious, are there any like things that have come up in your studies along the way that you've been most like attracted to or were most interested, like something that was just like, oh, I totally want to know everything about that aspect.
What actually kind of grabbed my attention was projectors and
Mm,
how they are. And so I have several projectors in my life, and just kind of understanding the struggle that they go through, not having that like recognition and being invited into something. So, if they're just initiating something and kind of expecting um, that recognition, it's so like it just keeps. I don't know how to explain it, but I have a couple of real life examples, and
mhm,
one was most recent with a family member who has always sort of been the caretaker.
mhm.
Um, and she's always like kind of organizing for the family, making sure that things are done for the family, like bringing things up that need to be done for the family. And the family's like, okay, yep, okay, whatever. And then, they get like annoyed with her or like frustrated, or do what you want to do, do whatever. And then she feels like, well, why am I even doing this? And so it really does have that like real life, like you can actually see it popping out at you once you learn more about it. And so all they need is that recognition and that validation. Like, I see what you've been doing. I appreciate all the work that you've done for this family. Like, there's so much here that nobody has recognized.
Right.
And like, and that's it's
Yeah.
huge. So
Yeah, no, it is true. I agree with you. I find that projector aura very interesting too. And I think it's what's interesting about the scenario you just laid out is giving those folks recognition is super important, right? Just
Mhm.
saying, hey, I see what you're doing here is very helpful, but
Yeah.
it doesn't fix the problem,
No.
right? Like the problem is this person sees all the things that need to be done, sees all the things that aren't quite right, sees all the energy that needs to be guided, and it feels compelled to do it, and yet
Mhm.
nobody has invited it, right?
Yep.
Nobody really wants this. I was talking to a projector type a couple months ago, and she's that same person. She does everything for everybody in her family. And I had to stop her. I'm like, but wait, did they ask for you to
Right.
take their car to the car wash and wash it? Well, no,
Mhm.
but it really needed to be done. It was just dirty. And I'm like, yes, but you have to recognize from their perspective,
Mhm.
what you're saying is their car's not clean enough and that you can make it better. Well,
Yeah.
that's not what I meant. I'm like, I know that's not what you meant, but
Right.
they
Yeah.
didn't
And it's
ask
all
you.
that perception that like how am I being perceived in the world? And
Right.
like once you kind of get that
Mhm.
picture, it's like, oh,
Right.
like
Exactly.
maybe I need to adjust some of my
Exactly.
expectations and all of that. So
Yeah. Well, and just take a step back. And I think this is the other thing that human design at its deep core is really trying to teach everyone, which is we're all doing too much,
Mhm.
right? We are all initiating when we shouldn't be. We are all thinking about more than we need to be thinking about, right? We're all in our heads.
Right.
And if we really wanted to be, closer to our designs, we would all stop doing a lot of
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
Right? But we
Yeah.
live in this crazy world we created, right? This generator
Mhm.
types, we created this nutty world, and now we're like, oh,
Right.
but I guess we have to live in it.
Yes, yes, and that's yeah, it's very true for me too, as like as the gatherer of my family, like my siblings, everybody, like I'm kind of the hub. Everybody comes here, I gather everyone. That's sort of like my duty.
Yeah,
But then it becomes like, well, I'm doing everything and I'm not asking for help. I'm not saying, hey, can this be a potluck? And like, can you just bring some stuff, when you come? And like, I have that conditioning where I'm like, no, it was my idea. I want to bring them here, so it's all on me.
yeah,
Instead of, hey, everybody, I want to get everyone together. What do you think about, everybody bringing a dish or like,
right.
so like that kind of has shifted for me. So
Good.
now I'm not feeling like I have to do everything. And then,
Right.
of course, everybody that I've asked to bring something, they're like, of course. And I'm like,
Sure.
oh, all these years that I've just been taking it on by myself, and I could have just been like delegating to all, to everybody else. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, so,
Well, and it's true. Like, it's so cool to hear you talk about that. And I'm looking at your chart, right? Like, you actually have gate 45. That's the gatherer, right? That's a tribal gathering of resources kind of energy. And you've got the community channel with the 4037, which is very much about doing exactly what you're talking about. But it's interesting, through the lens of modernity, women are the ones that are supposed to do that
mhm,
selflessly,
right.
right? And so we've all taken on those kinds of roles, but really that energy, that tribal energy, isn't about individuals taking on, tasks on their own. It's really about, hey, we're all in this together. Let's work together to make this thing happen, right? Let's resource all of us, right? Because when you bring everybody together, they're totally benefiting from that, right?
Mhm.
Whether they
Yeah.
know it or
Yeah.
not, right?
Right.
Right? And so it's this great, like you just had this great little discussion about how I think how we're moving back into a more balanced expression of each of these energies, right? Like, yes, I have this really tribal nature to want to bring my people close and make sure they're
Mhm,
well resourced, but it's not my responsibility, right?
mhm,
It's just I have a part in it and I have to, it's like you may talk about this in your own practice at the clinic too, which is just like the difference between caregiving and caretaking,
mhm.
right? And so when we caretake, we do what you said. I do all the stuff, I do all the
Yeah.
planning, right? I take all the care of people. But when you
Yeah.
caregive, you give
Mhm,
everybody an opportunity to share the caretaking of one another, right? The
yeah.
caregiving of one another. And so, yeah, I think that's a really beautiful thing too, to like recognize in us that, hey, we're actually evolving, right? Like this
Mm.
thing we've been doing, it's not so great. We can all see it. It's not working so well. It's
Yep.
literally collapsing right now.
Yep.
Right? But
Yeah.
we have, and this is something I think, again, human design can show us and help us with. It's like, look, yes, and we're evolving, right?
Mhm.
And we have a path forward, right? We have all these energies that can express in other ways too.
Right.
So yeah, I really like that a lot.
Mhm.
Um, any other things that just come up for you? I know I was going to go back real quickly to the manifester child.
Mhm. Mhm.
Have you talked to, is it a girl?
Well, yes.
A
It's a
girl?
girl, yep.
Okay.
She's 16.
16. Okay. Have you talked to her about her own design at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And
Does
she
it,
actually laughed when I said she has a closed and repelling aura. She laughed. She's like, that's why. But it was because and we have talked about it. I went through everything and she kind of went, yep, yep. And she's very comfortable with who she is. And so
good.
that's never been like an issue for her. It's just I think that it was beneficial for her to recognize or to see that I'm recognizing it in
Yeah.
her also, and like that she doesn't need to turn into a generator type.
Yeah.
That's like I'm not trying to force her into that.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That is so good because that's what I was going to talk about was just how, especially female manifestors, right? How conditioned they are in this world because again, all of their energy is there to do something that we consider quite masculine, right? Starting things up, making things go,
Mhm.
making them run, making them, making things happen,
Yep.
right? And so that can get shut down in them really early on.
Mhm.
So good for you for knowing that. And this is where, again, where I think even knowing a little bit about your children's human design, if you're a parent, can just make such a difference, right? Like if
Yes.
you know you've got a little manifestor kid that needs freedom and needs to do their own thing in their own timing, you
Yep.
can, I mean, again, you can't let them run out into the street, but
Right.
up to letting them run out in the street, you can choose to give them a lot more freedom, right?
Yep.
So it's just, but you wouldn't know to do that if you
Mhm.
don't know,
Right.
right?
Right. Because we were on that path of like, what am I doing wrong? Like, what am I doing wrong? And why isn't she,
Right,
joining in? We would
right,
have big parties. She would come out and say hi, and then she'd disappear. It's like, where'd Rachel go? She's in her room reading. So
right,
it was like, she'd rather be there. And if somebody wants to come say hi to her, the door's there. She's in there, and people can come in and say hi. But
right, right.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And again, that's another thing human design can do. It can remove this idea of a personality to your energy, right? Like you don't have to be like, oh, that's just the way she is. You could just literally say like, that's just how her energy works. It's really hard for her to be around a lot of people for a long time,
Yeah.
right? And people, for some reason, people are like, oh, okay. It's
Mhm.
not, that makes sense, right? It's not like
Yeah.
she's rejecting us as a family. Okay, cool. As long as it's
Right.
not about
Yeah.
me.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right? So I think that's really helpful too.
Mhm.
Um, there was something else we talked about. I know I'm bouncing around here, but we talked about training and homeopathy. And you're doing other training too, right? Like this, oh, I guess this is where I was going to go. Like you really feel like for you, human design is probably a thing that you're going to dive even more deeply into. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I think
Which
so.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious because I think it's interesting. Like you've gained a lot from the knowledge without
Mhm.
going too deep. Like you are choosing to go more deeply, but I think it's interesting. Like you can see now that you're doing both. I think you can see probably articulate like, oh yeah, when I knew just a little bit, I had a lot. That was a lot. It was really great. I can also see where knowing a lot would be even greater.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It is. It's
Right.
pretty awesome. And I have a friend, Joelle, who comes over every week to sit with me, and that's kind of been my like she keeps me on track.
Nice.
So we go through and she's like, what are we learning today? And so I'll go through and she kind of kicks things back. So it's been really helpful for me to have a study buddy,
Right.
because she kind of, even though she's not wanting to learn it all, she's actually helping me stay engaged and really like on top of it. And it's very motivating. And so she's been
Nice.
awesome. And
Nice.
then of
Well,
course, Christina
and she gives you
too.
somebody to respond to. Is she also a generator type?
She is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, right. So that going back and forth can be really, um, it's just that's what we need as generators, right? Like we
Yeah.
can get stuck in our own, like, I don't know what to do next, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Like I'm supposed to be creating content for this channel, and every time I get on by myself to like talk about something, I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, it's just weird talking into a box, right?
Yep.
So, which is why I'm so glad that you agreed to do this with me. Um, yeah, so I guess any other like things that are about human design that you might think might be important to people, or just in general, like where you see maybe what if there's a particular place in the human design world that you think you might be most interested in? Is it the homeopathy
Definitely
chakra?
homeopathy is a huge, that's going to be big. But I think also children, that's kind of what I would gravitate towards, because I really do think that knowing what your kid's type
Mhm.
is really going to help them and you,
Yeah,
like less resistance, less arguing, tantrums, all of that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so yeah, I think that that's going to be eventually where my uh, path leads me. That's what I
yeah.
more gravitated towards children.
Yeah, I love that. And that's exactly what it's supposed to be for, right? Human design came in very large part so that we would stop conditioning our children, right? And so 100% hope that that's exactly where you go because we definitely need it. And the other thing I really like about, and I have some interest in this whole like parent-child thing too, but the thing I like about human design is that you can't just talk about the kid,
Hmm.
right? Like you have
Yep,
to look at your own design too. And this
exactly.
is a piece that I think gets really missed in any kind of modern therapy, anything, quite frankly, right? It's like the kid is generally not the problem,
Right. It's a
right?
reflection of the parents. Yeah,
Right,
it's like that
exactly. And I have my
time.
own experience with this. I
Hmm.
definitely wish I had found human design earlier because there was a bunch of stuff I did thinking that my kids were the problem.
Hmm.
And they never
Yep,
were.
yep, exactly.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
I think that that's going to be a really powerful piece in the human design thing. Like, look, yes, this is their energy, but look, this is your energy. Look what you're
Hmm.
bringing, right? Look
Right.
how you're sending out energy. Look how they're receiving it, right? It's very, you can't
Yes.
just, it's not a one-way street, right?
Nope. And if you're open to that shift in perspective, it can be so beneficial to both sides. And I mean, it is tricky though too. And what I experienced was like the more I learned about myself, the more I sort of could recognize how I was being taken advantage of, who was in my corner, what is my time, like my time is worth more than sitting around with people that don't add to my life. So like
Right.
I went through a period of time with I did lose connections and not in a bad way, just like sort of gravitated away. And it can be a lonely journey, but it's definitely worth it because I feel like even though I have lost some connections, I've been gaining more and very, I've been gravitating towards a different type of person, different types of groups of people, and it's been incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. And that's what I love about it. Even just a little bit of it can really just change your life, right? It just changes your perspective a bit and it just opens up other places in you that just weren't open before, right? And I think that that's the power behind it. And so I love that it's happened like that for you.
Well,
And I
thank you.
really, yeah. And I really appreciate you jumping on with me today. I will put your um, what do we call it? Contact. Yes, that's the word. Contact stuff in the show notes. And if anybody would like to get in touch and learn more about what you're working on and the synthesis that you guys over there are working on, I think that they would be wise to do it because I suspect it's going to be really helpful to a lot of people. So totally appreciate it.
No problem.
Um, yeah, thank you
Thanks
so
for having me.
much. Yeah.